I'm best known as the writer of Steamed Hams. And that was one thing I wrote by myself. I also have now gotten the trademark for Steamed Hams brand hamburgers.
Now, are they obviously grilled?
I think they're grilled, yes. They're clearly not steamed. They're going to be grilled.
All right, welcome to This Week in Nerd History. There's a podcast where we take a look at all the fun, dumb, nerdy stuff from the past, present, and future. I'm Mike. Joining me as always, we got AJ and Sal. How you guys doing?
Great.
We've got a very special guest with us today, former Simpsons head writer and showrunner with Josh Weinstein, and now professional food enthusiast, Bill Oakley. Bill, thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Try not to nerd out too much today. Going to make a conscious effort not to do that. As I'm sure you've met tons of fans in the past, Simpsons hugely influential to kind of everything that we do up to our point in my career. So most people know you from The Simpsons, Mission Hill, Futurama, a billion other awesome shows. But over the past several years, you've built this whole second career as a food personality and enthusiast. And you've really built this whole community that it's sort of around the love of food culture. Has that always been a part of you? Is that something that you saw yourself doing at a certain point?
I don't think I saw myself doing it professionally, but I did. I was always the kind of person who was like, McDonald's has a new burger today, we got to go try it, we got to be the first one through the door. Right? And I was and at The Simpsons I would make fun of people who didn't know what the Arch Deluxe was. I remember making fun of Rich Appel when the Arch Deluxe was coming out. He didn't know what it was. I know he didn't know. He had little kids. He wasn't plugged into the McDonald's releases at the time. And so I always was very interested in that type of thing. And I mainly would just talk about it to people, or I would, in the golden age of Twitter, I would talk about it on Twitter. Then what happened was I realized that it would be more effective just to make videos about it. So I decided that was in 2018 to make videos about my interest in food and fast food and things like that. And it became pretty successful. And then over the past several years, I kind of lost interest in fast food because it's all the same stuff over and over again for the most part. And started doing these other things, being interested in regional foods, weird regional foods across America, like Altoona style pizza, the North Shore roast beef sandwich, Cincinnati sauerkraut balls. And then I was like, there must be other people who are interested in this. Maybe I could start having events where we got to sample these things without having to travel to Altoona or Cincinnati or whatnot. And I did that, and it's only been 13 months, but now I have done 21 events like that. And I started doing other events too. Just this past weekend, I did this one called The Greatest Airline Meals of the 20th Century at the airport. In cooperation with the airport and Alaska Airlines, and it was very successful. So, I think this is becoming a new career. Is these events, by the way, these events are funny, or at least somewhat. They're a lot more funnier than let me put this way. They're a lot funnier than your average food event, okay? Because what happens is I do the menu, I research the menu, and then I make a slideshow that's between each course. It's another 5 minutes of this is why this is interesting. This is what's funny about it. This has become my new career. Yes. I hope that was a succinct explanation.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I had just seen The Greatest Airline Meals of the 20th Century. I was gonna. I agree. I hadn't really seen anything like that before, and then it was cool that you had it in an airport, and I think Alaska Airlines was helping behind that.
Yes,
I was just curious.
Wait, I have it right here. Hold on. Yeah.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Nice.
Oh my god. What kind of research just from it's airplane or airline meals served on an airline or on flights and everything like that. So were you just kind of going through history of how much research is in that?
It actually took months of research with this because I read 3 books. There are 3 books on the history of airline food, and I read them all. And then I looked at hundreds of websites and thousands of old menus that there's people collect these, and they're in the archives, and they're on eBay and stuff. And then I worked with the chef at this place, Marcus Hilliker, to figure out what we could actually do. And every time I said, we're never going to be able to do this, it's too expensive, he said, no, we could do that. So we had this included, among other things, caviar, lobster, and Chateaubriand, this event. So yeah, I think we charged way too little for this event, ultimately.
They're serving lobster on airplanes? What flights?
Yeah, they were. This is well, you got to come to the event. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Next time I do it, yes, there was a golden age between about 1950 and 1978 where the airlines, the rates, the ticket prices were set by the government. So they all had the same ticket prices, and they had to compete on things like the glamour and the food and that kind of stuff. And that's where all this came from.
I had no idea.
Interesting.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I remember seeing like I don't know the era of the ad, but it was like an older airline ad. And there was like a certain glamour behind it. It might have been in like the 60s or 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And there was just like a full like roast. They're just kind of like carving a roast. I was like,
That was probably TWA, and that we served that course. TWA was famous for their Chateaubriand, which is kind of a filet mignon like cut of beef, and they carved it for you right from a cart right next to your seat. At least in first class.
Wow.
They did.
Now, did you have to actually hunt down the recipes that TWA or any of these other airlines actually had like in-house, or did you just kind of approximate? Like,
We
know
approximated
serve
it because chefs, because we also didn't like. There's, believe it or not, there's trademark and copyright issues involved.
Oh,
So
sure.
we sort of said as served on or as inspired by TWA 1978. You know.
gotcha.
Very cool.
But we did have a guy who had actually flown on TWA and had that and said we had matched it perfectly.
Oh, nice.
So
there we go.
yeah,
Wow.
that was rewarding. Anyway, that's what I do these days is I create funny, and I do it, I hope to have other different types of events too. I have a Christmas version of my regular event. I have a Canadian version of the event, which I'm hoping to find sponsor for because it's expensive to travel to Canada. And so like that, anyway, that's what I do these days is fun. I still do stuff on Instagram.
awesome.
When you first started doing it, or maybe shortly after, because I follow you on Instagram, I was like, oh, these were like, this is when you were doing like the fast food ones. And I was like, these are oddly, like, I was just watching all of them. Like whenever you had a new one out, I was just kind of just like jamming through all. They're oddly like comforting, or something about it was just like, they were just short and succinct, and like there's a certain like, I don't know, genuine kind of quality behind it. So I was kind of...
I got a lot of that, especially during the pandemic era, where people were like, I think people found a great deal of comfort in seeing a middle-aged white man who was not furious, all the time. Like, I seriously, and people would say like, you're my uncle, you're my substitute dad, and stuff like that. And I'd say, I'm happy to do that. And it's like, and it was just these 1 minute. Also, they're nice and short.
Yeah.
Way too much stuff is way too long. And my videos were always 1 minute or less. And so, I mean, I still do them, but now they're about like when I go to Milwaukee, I go to this famous restaurant, or when I go to whatever, I go try a regional food. When I'm on tour doing the event, I go to whatever famous restaurant they have in Kansas City or Cincinnati, for instance.
You mentioned Cincinnati a couple of times. My wife is from Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. When we first started dating, she brought me Skyline chili packets, and I never had. It was just like, it was like her, like, I don't know, finishing move of like impressing me on a date to like make the Cincinnati style chili.
Did it work?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
because many people hate it.
I know. I was kind of surprised when people, because I get it. It's a little bit different.
We've
but it's
served
just
it at several of
chili
my
sauce.
events, and I think I'm going to remove it from the menu choices, because it always comes back. People you have to get used to it, and you have to understand it's not a chili. It's more of like a sauce. It's a Macedonian spaghetti sauce, not a chili, and it's. I like it personally. I especially love it at Skyline Chili when you have it on hot dogs or whatnot. But it is for sure it's unappealing to people who are scared of it.
I did have a segue from food into Simpsons. So I recently like kind of took a step back and realized how many food jokes there are in The Simpsons. And like it just felt so natural just watching it over all those years, because it's mainly, a lot of it's kind of with Homer, and Homer loves food. So of course it just seemed like a natural fit. But I heard recently on an interview that your personal favorite food joke was the crab juice, the crab karash, that the vendor there. Was Mountain Dew like the first choice for like crab juice or Mountain Dew?
I think it came fast and furious. I don't remember. I'm fairly sure I pitched crab juice, but I think someone else said Mountain Dew, and I think it all came pretty together quickly. There was no other choice besides Mountain Dew. I actually like Mountain Dew, but I think it's like anything else would be too obscure. You wouldn't be able to say Moxie or Orange Crush or Cheerwine or whatever. Like Mountain Dew is the one that fits perfectly, and a lot of people do think it's gross.
Yeah. But not as gross as Moxie.
Yes, for sure.
If you are not prepared for Moxie and you just see it and you're like, oh, that looks fun. It's like a sensory overload. It's not fun.
I haven't had it in years, but I'm not seeking it out.
They sell it at the Cracker Barrel. You can pick it up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, a friend of mine, like he tricked us all because he was like, "Oh, they have Moxie," because he spends a lot of time in the Northeast, and he's just like, "Oh, they have Moxie. This is gonna be great." He cracks it open, drinks it like he's drinking a refreshing. Insert your favorite beverage here, and I'm like, "Sounds dope." Drink. Oh, and I was like, I wasted $6 on this bottle of soda.
What's wrong? I don't know. I've never had Moxie before.
Oh man, you should have it. It's great.
Sounds fantastic. I'll get it.
You should try
It's
it. I'll
stuck
bring you
around
some.
for over 100
wonderful.
years. It's a New England, I think it may even be more of a Maine type of thing. It's a soda, been around for at least 100 years, although I think it was probably resuscitated from the grave at some point. And it's one of those things that's like old time sort of like birch beer or sarsaparilla or root beer that's clearly made with like medicinal roots, but it has a gross cough syrupy taste. I think I'd say that's the best thing I can describe it.
It's pretty
like it doesn't have the sweetness of a birch beer or whatever. It has the roots have a gross taste.
Formation of that joke makes me want to ask you about the environment of the writer's room. We've heard descriptions of the writer's room before. I actually saw this wonderful picture of everybody looking completely and utterly miserable and dejected in this very cramped space with like like one couch. I had to pick
I know
up
that
the
photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I show that I show that during the Simpsons portion of my events, actually, when I talk about food at the Simpsons.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I have that poster. I had to buy it. I was like, I want that. It was the like season 2 teaser poster.
Uh-huh.
What was the environment like there? Was it as, cramped and uncomfortable, or was it just kind of like hanging out? Was it like being in like the basement with your friends, or was it some odd other third option that I can't think of at the top of my head?
Personally, I think it was more like hanging out with your friends in the basement. Like but it changed from year to year. It changed depending on what room we were in, who was in the room, and who the showrunner was. I can say what you're talking about is a photo from season 4, late 3, early 4, which has Conan O'Brien in it. I think it's just a few weeks before Josh and I started working there. When we worked in the room, it looked just like that. And the food, that was lunch they had from Islands, which was a kind of a Hawaiian themed burger place nearby that we'd order in lunch. And I think personally, I took great pride in that. Like in the kind of like frat house atmosphere of the place. And I wouldn't say it was a frat house in a bad way. It wasn't a frat house like there was like hazing and stuff, but it was a dump. And we were we were a different breed than the average sitcom at that point, because most of the people, I think this is the thing that people don't remember at all, especially people under 50. TV was very different prior to 1989. Like sitcoms were like real mild, and like I think Married with Children was actually more before The Simpsons, but like before then sitcoms were very mild, and there were like things like, I don't know, Full House, or romantic things, or it just wasn't the same universe. And what happened was The Simpsons, Sam Simon hired a whole bunch of writers from late night. Like none of those, I don't think most of those guys did not have primetime experience. They all came from Letterman or Saturday Night Live, and it brought kind of a late night, what they call the late night sensibility to prime time, which was different. Now every show's like that, and every show like 30 Rock and South Park, even as recently as 2003, it was still like the very mild sitcoms. And I could say and I know a few other people, took pride in the fact that we were kind of isolated. We were not part of the Hollywood community. We didn't know any TV executives or whatever. We lived in our own weird kind of dirty frat house and made up a show that we all enjoyed, and it wasn't the factory environment or the kind of like, pompous, like I don't know, people who for the more acclaimed shows in those days who wore ties and stuff, to their desks. We took pride in that atmosphere, and then it changed a little bit over time. Like we moved in season 5 and 6, we moved to a much bigger room that was part also David Merkin's office. But then when he left, we moved back to that room because Josh and I in 7 and 8, we were like, we want to get back to this thing. And like, not everybody wants to hang around the frat house late at night because some people have kids and they have other jobs, or they have their wife is waiting for them. But we weren't like that. And we were like, we want to hang around in our frat house and make up these cartoons with our friends. And so, it was annoying to some people. And I know in retrospect, I'm sorry, but at the time it was a good time.
When you became showrunner, did that change? Were you like, now that I'm showrunner, I can get us a bigger room, or I can get us Mountain Dew whenever we want. It'll flow like wine from the.
We're moving back to the old room. Josh and I moved back to the old room, and we also sometimes we had a second room too, which was just kind of a bland office like small space with a little round table. But we moved back to the old room. I think we had it cleaned up a little bit, but we liked that. We didn't like having like a lot of TV shows have a big long conference table. Where the writers sit at a big long conference table, and we never liked that because there's two reasons. There's the conference table, and there's a big screen where the script is on the big screen, and that's what every TV show I've been on other than The Simpsons is like. At The Simpsons, we preferred that it be this room. There was a couch. You saw what it looked like. It's 3 or 4 couches and some chairs sitting around a table. And there was the script was on the monitor, but we got rid of that too. We were like, just think of the jokes. We don't need you to tell us where the comma goes. To the writers, to Josh and I, we actually even got rid of the writers' assistants didn't come in the room except when we were pitching out stories. Josh and I each had a laptop that the show got us, and we typed the stuff into the script ourselves. Because we were like, everybody just pitch the jokes. Don't worry, let us worry about the wording. We'll fix that later. Just have fun and think of the jokes, and we won't have to. We don't like a corporate atmosphere here.
Right.
Something that when you're saying, TV was different before, 1989 or so, the thing to me that really stood out when I started watching The Simpsons was just kind of the comedic pacing was so much faster, not like frenetic or anything, but just like the amount of like jokes per minute just seemed like the pacing was just like, I don't know, turned up a few notches. And recently watching some older shows like Night Court or even Cheers, which I love, like the pacing has just felt very different from TV at that time. Do you think, part of that increased like joke output, do you think part of that was like the late night or that the type of writers that were working on the show?
Yes, and I think it's also the different types of shows. Most of the shows at that time were what were called multi-camera shows with an audience, and they had 3 cameras, and the live audience would laugh. And so you can't go too fast. The audience has to be able to keep up, and that's like. But there were a few shows that started to be much what are single camera shows, which is a show that's more like shot like a movie, but they didn't come on until after, like Malcolm in the Middle. Perfect. That's the example of the show like that. Although Malcolm in the Middle apparently one time said it's live action Simpsons, like so they were just copying the Simpsons format, I believe that came out. But like there weren't that many shows of the single camera show at all at that time. So The Simpsons kind of brought that sensibility to prime time that allowed, I think, other shows to like Malcolm, and then later there's like 30 Rock to have a kind of a much faster pace of the story of jokes.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point about I didn't really even think about the laugh track and all that part that kind of helps control the pacing. Yeah.
Yeah, they can like pause for a joke or to like live in that joke. You guys obviously no live studio audience, the animation quality and the expectation of like the next thing. Plus, this is what I was curious about when we were talking about the writer's room, is just that much humor, that much like that kind of loose atmosphere allows for a lot of ideas to kind of flow very naturally. And I can imagine there being so many ideas at once, or so many different concepts that may, just be a great joke in general, but doesn't fit for this episode that we're trying to hash out here today. Was there just a book of gags or jokes that just killed you, that you were like, we can't use that in this, but we can't forget it, and we have to put it in here and use it later? Were there any regrets where you're like, we didn't get to the whole journal, like we didn't get through the whole thing?
I don't think so. I don't recall. I know that there were not, like, in terms of gags, maybe there were 2 or 3 total like that. And we would put them on an index card and put them up on the board, but it was more story ideas that were like that. Like we also had lots of story ideas that we never completely cracked that were also up on the board on index cards. And sometimes they were just jokes, or they were like, here's an itchy and scratchy or whatever. But in general, we didn't have a huge amount of those because that show used a lot of material, it ground through so much material all the time, every episode. So we didn't have a lot of spare stuff lying around.
If I remember my research correctly, you got the segment in Treehouse of Horror, Terror at 5.5 feet. Is that right?
Yes.
When the time comes around for Treehouse of Horror, how much prep do you need to have? Like, do you start pitching Treehouse, in January, or or is it, oh crap, October's coming up, we got to start working on, not really like around the corner, but the concept of like, I can imagine everybody kind of wanting to be on Treehouse of Horror because there's such a freeing, open-ended, like looser opportunity to do something much less grounded.
Yeah, I think that's the case, but it wasn't. I mean, I think it was sort of just made up on the regular schedule. Every episode started 10 months before it had to go on the air. So it wasn't like there was extra prep time for the Treehouse. It was just in the usually the second or third or fourth episode of the season. And around that time, we would just say, people would come to the room and people would say, what can we do this year? And then people, we'd look through the Twilight Zone companion and we'd look through the book, the Encyclopedia of Horror Movies that we had in the room. And then people would say, well, we never did Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's, oh yeah, well, Willie's a janitor. That works perfectly. So that's the kind of thing that happened at that time. And it was fun to write too. I mean, the main problem with those is that there was so much stuff to cram in. You always had to keep it so short in those segments, and they got edited down even more for syndication. So they were tough. It was tough to write them succinctly, I'd say, but they were always fun to write for sure.
When it came to the formation of a Who Shot Mr. Burns, I know, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a whole episodes of the shows dedicated to asking you every single piece of minutia about Who Shot Mr. Burns. I'm trying to keep it a little bit original. When that two-parter came around, was it, I have this idea for an episode like any other episode, and then it ballooned into a two-parter, or was it more that you were like, let's pull a stunt, let's try something fun, or what came first when it came to that?
Yeah, but it was
concept?
Matt Groening who said that stuff that you just said. It was Josh and I, because it was a story we were looking for. Every year there was 2 times we had what was called a story conference or story retreat, where we would go to a hotel room or a hotel, like a big, like kind of a conference type room in a hotel, which was generally even just like within 100 yards of the office. It wasn't even like in the old days, the story retreat was like the writers of Mary Tyler, any other Jim Brooks production, like the writers of Taxi or Mary Tyler Moore go to Palm Springs for a week or go, whatever. And that's what it was, like Las Vegas for a week. For us, it was you go to a conference room in a hotel for one afternoon, and the hotel is 100 yards from the office. So that's what it was. But so we were everybody. So twice a year, people would come in with their stories, and we'd work with the writers, so they weren't just coming in cold. We reviewed the stories, at least when we were running it. For season 7, everyone was preparing for the story retreat for the top of end of season 6. Matt Groening came into our office, Josh, my office, and said, why don't we do some sort of stunt like, Who Shot JR, but like Who Shot Mr. Burns? And we're like, oh, that's a great idea. And he's like, it could be a 2-parter. And we're like, yeah, it's an even better idea. So we just made up the story of Who Shot Mr. Burns. We took it to the conference. Everybody agreed, especially Brooks, who's in charge of everything, but you only see him like once every 6 months. Brooks loved it. So yeah, we got to work on crafting the mystery with the writer's room. We figured out all the little details. Then Josh and I went off and outlined it and wrote the script. But yes, it was always conceived of being that kind of thing.
Was there any pushback from you guys where it's like, we've never done a 2-parter? Is this something we want to do?
No. Everybody was on board from day one, 100% on board.
People have like these ideas of what the Simpsons are and do, and I can imagine there being kind of in your guys' perspective, a place of, whoa, Homer would never do that. Or we would never do this.
We were constantly doing that. That was in season 5 and 6. We were there was a lot of, let's just say there was disagreement about certain episodes of the show where we're like, Homer's a regular guy. He's not the most famous man in the world. And so that kind of thing. And there was debates about this, but then it finally just all like, everybody liked all the episodes that Homer was the most famous man in the world. So whatever. Okay. So we're like, okay, never mind. That ship has sailed.
Yes.
So at this point we were not, nobody had all that stuff you're saying, Sal, nobody had any of those problems. Everybody agreed. The cliffhanger had been a long established tradition in broadcast television, worked incredibly well with Dallas and many other shows. And we were just like, we're going to get on board that train, and it worked.
Yeah. When did the 1-800-COLLECT bullshit came?
Sometime at some point, we weren't really privy to all that because that was taking place. Merkin was the only person who ever spoke to the network or the studio, right, as the showrunner at that point, and he dealt with all that stuff. And at some point, they came on board. Fox arranged for 1-800-COLLECT to come on board, 7-Eleven, and all these other things. But we weren't like, we just saw that stuff happening from a great distance. We didn't have any input.
By that point, The Simpsons had already become a phenomenon. So it wasn't. I
Yeah,
can
but
imagine.
it wasn't a phenomenon anymore. This is the thing people don't remember. The Simpsons was a huge phenomenon in season 2. Late season 1, season 2. Season 2, it was like one of the top 10 shows on TV, and it beat Bill Cosby, which was the whole, like, remember, Cosby was the king of primetime TV comedy. And The Simpsons finally beat Bill Cosby in early season 2. And then Cosby gradually, shriveled up, and that was the end of that show. And The Simpsons, but then moved into Sunday night. And over the next seasons 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it settled into being number 60 every week. People don't remember this at all. But we were on, it wasn't like we were doing badly because it was Fox, but we were still doing like,
You're still making Fox jokes.
Yeah, I know. But we were doing like, on Sunday at 8, you had Touched by an Angel, you had Mad About You, you had us and something else. Touched by an Angel would always get huge, gigantic ratings. And Mad About You would always get big ratings. And we'd come in third if we were lucky. And so making us number 58 or 60 for the week. So but that also was the blessed thing that people weren't paying attention and we got to do whatever we wanted. That was the blessed thing about that. So, but we, and I think we did come in like number 17 or something the week we did the Who Shot Mr. Burns finale. But it was, in general, we were not a smash hit. We had a comfortable rut of being number 58 for years.
That's so like personal bias, because I was just like, this is the most important show everybody's watching.
Literally, we were like, who would not be watching The Simpsons? This is what I said. You may recall in the episode where Krusty fakes his own death, a bus goes by and it says, shouldn't you be watching Mad About You right now? NBC must see TV. And we put that on there because we were like, what person in their right mind would be watching Mad About You when there's a new Simpsons on? And the answer is 25 million people who didn't give a shit about The Simpsons, who love Mad About You. And then Paul Reiser from Mad About You actually thought that, God bless him, he thought that we had meant that sincerely. So we put like a Bart Simpson doll on the set of Mad About You. And we were like, we did it out of outrage that he was beating us all the time.
That's so, yeah. That is about perception being reality, right? Because I mean, yeah, number one in my heart. And
kids were watching it, but like the kids, like everyone under 18 was watching The Simpsons.
Right.
But nobody gives a shit about the demographic. It's 18 to 49. So it was 18. Every kid was watching it, and people 18 to 25 were kind of watching it, and then it went down to the point where we were getting like a 0.01 in people over 49.
Wow,
that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Anyway, that's the story. Yes, it's hard to recall those days, but it's true.
Yeah, you seem to be doing a pretty good job.
Most of this stuff that you're referring to would not have been on a normal show, because a normal show would have to be subject to network oversight. And when The Simpsons, you already know this story, so I won't go over it, but The Simpsons did not. We didn't, because Brooks was the most famous director in Hollywood when it started out, Tracy Ullman. He was able to, and Fox was nothing. He was able to get this incredible deal where The Simpsons, we didn't have to have the network at the table readings. They couldn't give us notes. All they could do was just broadcast the tape we delivered. And so we didn't have any input. We didn't have any oversight from anyone. And Matt, although Matt was there usually for the table readings and the so forth. He was, and the animatics, he wasn't in the writer's room, and we got along with him spectacularly, so he didn't ever give us any notes. And Brooks, who is the actual guy who really controls everything, was busy directing his movies, so we'd only see him once or twice a year. And he was very supportive too. So it was a rare circumstance where everybody, and not just the seasons Josh and I ran, but all those seasons were seasons where we could just do whatever we wanted. And we didn't know, there was the internet was not really in existence in its current form. So there wasn't a lot of online feedback. So all we were just doing was writing to amuse ourselves. And there were a bunch of guys who were kind of like, educated nerds who put in a lot of references to things that nobody knew. But we liked them. And, like for the perfect example being the line, Grover Cleveland spanked me on 2 non-consecutive occasions.
Non-consecutive occasions.
And then that was like the perfect, that would never have made it into a network show, because the network would have said nobody knows what that was referring to.
Right.
But nobody said that to us, and we all thought it was really funny because we knew about Grover Cleveland. And then that's the reason that those things made it on the air.
Gotcha.
I love it. Oh my God.
You got to be very careful about your Simpsons quotes and references, because you're going to trigger an auto response from either Mike or myself.
I know. Yeah. Oh my God.
Do you find when you're out in the wild, you'll hear a Simpsons reference made either like colloquially or just like a couple of people are bantering back and forth, and you just think, yeah.
If they only knew.
I mean, I see it all the time online. I don't listen to people's private conversations and hear them doing Simpsons references, but I do hear. I mean, I see it online all the time. I definitely get it from people when I encounter them.
Right.
And I know that it's out there, and I know that people tell me all the time, well, me and my wife speak to each other in Simpsons references. Me and my brother speak to each other in Simpsons references. So I'm proud, and I'm also pleased to see that it seems like a lot of them come from the era that I was there. So I take pride in that.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reference that you use often?
Well, to be honest, I'm best known as the writer of Steamed Hams. And that was one thing I wrote by myself, strangely enough, in the time I was there. And I'm happy to see that it became this meme. It was Internet Meme of the Year in 2018, but it also means hamburgers. And so I've used steamed hams in a lot of my culinary endeavors. Right there, you see that's the neon sign for the Steamed Ham Society, which is my food club on a Discord. Right there, that's the neon sign for that. But
Nice.
I also have now gotten the trademark for Steamed Hams brand hamburgers. And on June 5th, we're going to be selling, if you guys want to fly into Portland, we're going to be selling them at one of the locations of Burgerville, which is a huge fast food franchise in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh my God.
Now, are they
Nice.
obviously grilled?
I think they're grilled, yes. They're clearly not steamed. They're going to be grilled.
Where did the 22 short films about Springfield come about? Was that just because I always editorialize, so I just assume it's like, we got too many funny ideas, none of them really correlate. Let's just do 22 different jokes like that are segments.
That's kind of what happened, but it wasn't exactly like that. It was in the episode in season 4 called The Front, where Grandpa is, right, you know what that episode is. At the end of the episode, it came in short, so they had to make up something. We were in the room at that time as the junior guys, and Mike and Al's episodes always came, Mike, Reese, and Al Jean, who were running the show, their episodes were great. They always came in short because they were real brutal about cutting. And so that episode came in like a minute too short, and so they had to fill it up with something. They made up that thing in the room, The Adventures of Ned Flanders. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's on Saturday. We don't get whatever. That, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
We thought that thing was hilarious because it's so stupid, and it's such a perfect, it's a perfect kind of like Archie's gag bag type of thing. Both Josh and I are big fans of Archie and Archie's gag bag, which were often those jokes just like that. That were one-page jokes that were super corny. So we were always trying to find, in season 7 and 8, we were always trying to find an episode that was short enough that we could do one of those at the end. And none of ours were ever short because we didn't cut as brutally as Mike and Al, because we were in love with our own material. So everything was really long. And we never had a chance to do any of the shorts. So I think it was around the time that Pulp Fiction came out, I was like, me or Josh or one of us was like, what if we just did a whole bunch of shorts and tacked them all together in kind of a Pulp Fiction-y way? And they kind of intertwine, and we were like, yeah, that's a great idea. We like that idea. And the writers were excited about it. It wasn't popular at the time, but over the years, I think a lot of our material was only popular with what you would consider to be hardcore Simpsons fans. And there just weren't that many at the time. But I think over the past 30 years, many people have become indoctrinated into being hard Simpsons fans. They like those episodes more than the public did at the time.
Yeah. Is partially gelatinated non-dairy gum-based beverages, was that actually written? Did you pull that from ingredients list, or was that just...
Yeah, that's what milkshakes were made of, I think, back in those days.
I never bothered to look it up, but I did memorize it.
I think that was the ingredients on milkshakes, or at the very least. I don't know if it was McDonald's, but I know that frozen milkshake, partially gelatinated gum-based was a standard thing in fake milkshakes at that time.
The 22 short films of Springfield, man, that episode, I know that I think you're credited for the Chalmers and Skinner scene, but did you contribute to, I assume it's the writer's room, you contributed to all of them in some way.
No, not really. In this case, it was, we had basically a fantasy football style draft. All the writers, we sat in the room and everybody got a number, and we bid for who you wanted to write for, right? Mm-hmm. So I was and I think because I was in love with the duo of Skinner and Chalmers, I kind of just said, I'm going to go first because I'm running the thing, and I'm taking Skinner and Chalmers. That's the only one I'm going to write. And then we went around the room, and people said, I want to do Mole Man. I want to do Comic Book Guy. I want to do Marge, right? Marge got cut, but yes, and so we did. And that's what happened. And everybody wrote 2, in some cases 3, like 1 or 2 page segments. Greg Daniels put them all together in order and rewrote them a little bit, working with Josh. And then we kind of had to just keep cutting them down as time went on because it was way too long.
It might have been you in the audio commentary for the show back in the day, but the idea of Chalmers being one of the few members of Springfield actually like challenges the things that are happening.
But he doesn't push it too far. I've said this a million times.
He's just like, really?
he pushes it once and then he drops it. And then that's after
that's so funny.
In 22 short in Streamed Hams, he pushes it 13 or 14 times.
Right.
Then again,
he doesn't let him have it.
Right. And the thing is, the only other guy like him in the universe was Frank Grimes. And Frank Grimes couldn't drop it. He couldn't let it go. And the universe made him pay a price for that. Unlike Chalmers, who's like, I don't fucking care enough. I don't care. You know what? Let him lie. That's Chalmers. Chalmers is like, who cares? He's got a lead back attitude. Frank Grimes is the kind of person, like many of us are, who's like, don't you see? You have to see that that's crazy. And Frank pushed it too far, and the Simpsons universe pushed him back.
That's pretty dark.
I sincerely believe that's the case, and that's kind of why it's that people don't push the universe too far. That's the way Homer. Swartzwelder commented on this too. I think in that big New Yorker piece. Oh, he said Frank Grimes was asking for it, is what he said.
I was asking for it.
Oh my God.
I love that though, where he's like, I live above a bowling alley and below another bowling alley. That's the kind of gag that you just wait for.
Yeah.
That you expect at that point in the lifespan of the show, where you're just like, yep, here comes something that I've never heard anyone say that I will forever reference.
It's such a Swartzwelder thing too, that there could be a building like that.
Right, with 2 bowling alleys.
Right, and residential apartments between the floors.
One that comes to mind is the when Marge has the pretzel franchise, and they're at the baseball game with the Whitey Whackers, and Whitey's pleading with the stands not to stop throwing it, and then you cut to the announcers, and you cut back way too early, and Whitey's already unconscious, so you don't see him getting pummeled by the pretzels, and he's laying in a position that's like not even. He's facing the different way, so he got hammered really fat. Like that, to me, is the funniest type of thing where you don't see the carnage.
I know,
and it's
that makes me laugh so much. In my office, I used to have 2 Simpsons frames that I thought were the funniest still frames. That one of him, of Whitey lying on the ground, and the other one of Rex Banner with his banana kaboom. In front of him, and him looking really all grim with all the sparklers going off on the banana kaboom, which I thought was another one like that. But yes, I completely agree with you. And it would not have been funny at all to see Whitey getting hit with it. Might have been a little funny to see Whitey getting hit with the pretzels, but just cutting back and then he's already unconscious on the ground and more pretzels are still coming down. That's so funny.
My favorite moment of that is just, and here come the pretzels.
Yes. The Black Day for baseball.
Oh my God. I wanted to shift over and talk a little bit about Mission Hill.
Yeah.
You left Simpsons in 98 and then Mission Hill came out in 99?
Yeah.
Right? Was that in development? Like, when you guys left, did you guys just go straight into Mission Hill development or was there like overlap?
We were consulting on season 9. On season 9, we only had to come in 1 day a week, and it was just for the table read and to give our notes. And during that time, we were developing Mission Hill.
Gotcha.
That must have been 97 or 8. And so, we were still coming in to finish up the episodes, the post, putting the music and things like that for the season 8 as well. And then as that kind of got finished up, then we were already pitching at Mission Hill.
This was maybe a few years back, but you and Josh were developing or coming up with a plan to try and get like a season 2 or just more?
Yeah. That coincided with the complete collapse of the television business.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are aware, television business is an atrocious state.
Yeah.
Everybody there's 10% of the people employed that used to be employed. Every job is pays minimum Writers Guild minimum. If you can get a Writers Guild job, they get 5 Emmy winners and showrunners to come in and work for minimum on a show that has a 6-episode order on Hulu, right? So that business is dead. So we were in the middle of that when we were trying to pitch this thing. It was complicated too because Mission Hill was not incredibly popular, It was also a Warner Brothers property, so they had to be involved. They're not very popular with the rest of the universe, and there was not really any place for it. It was also an expensive show too, so it didn't go anywhere. And we were like, okay, well, I guess maybe we can do a podcast or a comic book. And they're like, no. You can't do any of that stuff. These characters are our property. And that's what inspired us to go on tour, showing it in movie theaters around the country and not giving them any of the money. So we did that. We did it for about a year and a half. It was really fun. We showed episodes, and we did behind the scenes stuff. And we found basically like every city seems to have about 100 Mission Hill fans. And we went to places all over the country. We must have been to 18 different cities. It was really fun.
You went over and consulted for Futurama. What was the transition there? Like, what were you just like, that was kind of fun? Or were they like, no, you got to get over here. You got to come up. You got to play with us.
David Cohen, who runs Futurama, has been a friend of mine since we were 18. And so and he worked with us on The Simpsons, as you know. So it was fun. It's there's a very Simpsons atmosphere there. We were only there for 2.5 days a week for one season. And we were just in the writer's room and just helping out and whatnot. The only thing that we really contributed significantly to, I think, was that Roswell episode. Because I happen to have been a huge Roswell buff, so I helped mainly with the non-funny stuff about Roswell in that episode. But that was it was a lot of fun working there, and it was very much like working at The Simpsons.
Portlandia, when you were on there, was that obviously it helped being in the area, but
I live in Portland.
Yeah,
and it was fun working there. It was very different than everything else I had ever done because there were only 4 people on the show, on the staff of the show. Like, it was Fred and Carrie and the writer, which for season 3 was me, or season 2 was me, Carrie Dornetto, and the direct showrunner, basically John Kreisel. So it was very, it was, like I said, there were 4 or 5 people in the room, including Fred, Carrie, and the showrunner. And so we'd make up stuff. And the thing about it is that it's not really the kind of thing I'm used to, because I'm used to the Simpsons animation where you control every tiny little frame the writer controls, right? In Portlandia, it's so heavily improvised. We'd write these scripts, and then they'd go to the set, and they wouldn't look at the scripts, and they'd just kind of improvise for 8 hours, and the editors would put it together. And they're very talented about it, but it wasn't a show that like a lot of detailed scripting was needed, so that wasn't really my forte.
Gotcha.
I can imagine that there was some kind of writing for The Simpsons, because it was such a grounded, in its own way, show. You could do the fantastic, but it was about people at the end of the day. That there was an opportunity for Portlandia to kind of play with the idea of the ridiculous and the zany, but also have it be with tangible physical people.
Portlandia did a Simpsons-style creation of a community with a whole bunch of different, very distinct characters that all lived in this fake Portland. And I think I don't know if it was inspired to some extent, but certainly similar to the world of The Simpsons, the world building of The Simpsons, which they also did in Portlandia, where the characters would interact with each other or cross each other's paths in this little universe they built.
Obviously, television is a hellscape from which there is no escape, and it is a wasteland. Is there any, from your perspective, from your experience as a showrunner, as a writer, as a luminary and an influence, is there any alternative or way out that you see that we could find in the future that might help save television or reinvent it in some way?
I mean, see, the problem is that all television is video. It's like television, such as it is not really so much of a thing anymore. Like, you're competing with TikTok, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. It's all video on the screen. And thus, you have to compete with 100 million things coming out every hour, right? Yes. But there are some, like, the thing is, there's obviously some things that catch on, like Stranger Things on Netflix, right? Or The Masked Singer, or things like that, right? Yeah. that catch on, and people, but there's no way to predict what those are going to be, and so it's definitely worth trying. But I think things that people make for no money, for free, have just as much chance of catching on as something that costs $100 million, which is why this business is in flux right now. And I think what I always tell people is, don't wait for a company to give you any money or take care of you in any way, because it's not going to happen. Do the thing that you want to do. Figure out a way to do the thing you want to do. And it's tough because people have to make a living, right? But I say that's like, figure out the way don't rely on the traditional method of a big company giving you money for whatever it is you want to do. Ideally, go directly to the fans. Go directly to the people who are interested in this and get the money from them without a giant intermediary telling you what to do and taking half the money or more than half the money. And I think that's part of what I mean. God bless the people who have been successful on YouTube doing that or whatever, especially with animated stuff, which is so hard and so expensive to do. I think that's what I would say is don't give up, but it's not necessarily the gold mine it was 40 years ago.
It's more of a struggle than ever, and it's not necessarily going to be financially rewarding. It's right.
You're
cultural reward.
You're competing for the eyeballs and the time of people who have an infinite number. It was very different when there were 3 TV channels. If you wanted to sit down and night watch TV, you got 3 choices or PBS, right? That's it. And that's now every time you sit down to watch TV, you have 100 billion choices, including everything that was ever filmed. Right. So it's difficult. And that's why I'd say things, I'm telling people to do things like everyone I talk to about this, I'd say, consider other methods, consider doing like local theater and things like that, or coming up with things like that, because some guys I was devising about this. I was like, don't write a TV script. Get your things. The guys have their thing on off Broadway now, and there's not an infinite number of off Broadway shows because there's a limited number of places to do them, right? Yeah. So, and those are people. They're just as popular as ever, as far as I can tell. So there's other places where your talents might succeed that aren't this enormous ocean of competitive content.
I was going to go get to the Dorkly Discord questions. 2 of them actually got answered throughout us talking, but there's one from Chase, who is actually one of our animators as well, a big Simpsons fan. This was from the episode The Principal and the Pauper. And there was, I think it was on a DVD extra, you had said it was like an experimental episode, like the Simpsons Showcase episode, but that it wasn't made clear to the audience as much, that it was like more experimental.
There was something in the script. Okay, so first of all, let me say, I don't think there's anything wrong with the episode the way it is. Okay, I'll stand up for it all the way till the end. I think it's a great episode. It is inspired by a story that has been around since the 1500s, which is The Return of Martin Guerre, which is a famous French story. It was made into an Academy Award-winning movie, I believe, in the 80s, about a guy who comes back from war and adopts someone else's identity, right? And then also that was remade as a movie called Summersby, starring Richard Gere. And furthermore, it actually happened several times in real life too. Ken brought in an article from the newspaper about someone who had done that. And by the way, that's the entire point of Mad Men.
Mad Men, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
The entire point of Mad Men. So I think people who, first of all, who aren't familiar with those stories had an extra people who thought we made up this whole thing just because we ran out of ideas are wrong. We're doing this as an homage to The Return of Martin Guerre because Skinner was a Vietnam veteran. Now, I understand why people understand that we feel like we're tampering with his backstory, right? Because we want Skinner to be a certain type of person, although his backstory has been tampered with hundreds of times in smaller ways. Let me say that I think Ken, there was another line in there that we cut out for time that Ken, I don't remember what it was, that he feels would have solved this. What I think I would have done is add a 30-second thing with Marge, like in the early Halloween episode, saying, "This is an episode of Simpsons Fantasy Theater. This episode did not really happen, so don't write us letters." Something like that, right? And that would solve the whole thing, because it was a funny story, but I think people objected. People were like, "Oh, that's when they ran out of ideas." No, we were really proud of that episode, and it wasn't even the end. It was supposed to be number 17 or something like that. But we were really proud of it. We thought it was a great story, a great homage to historical movies and whatever, and worked perfectly with him. But I can understand if you never heard of that before and you don't like the tampering with the backstory, it's a Simpsons Fantasy Theater episode. Which, by the way, you could easily say the Homer going to outer space is an episode of Simpsons Fantasy Theater, right? Yeah. The guy went to outer space.
Absolutely.
I think when the judge says something like, "We're never going to reference this again under penalty of torture," that was their kind of like, it was almost like an admission where it was like, okay, all right, you know what, maybe we reached too far, but anyway, we had a good time, so who cares?
Right.
I love him being run out on a railroad. That's so funny.
I know.
Yeah, me too. I love that.
Yeah.
He's tied to the flat car.
Yep. Bye.
That's their solution. I love it. It's one of because the internet wasn't a thing necessarily in terms of instant.
Well, we did have Alt TV Simpsons, which I'm sure you've heard about, and they hated everything. By this time, we'd already had the.
They hated everything.
We had the modem. I've told the story a million times, but I'll just go quickly through it. Jake Hogan, I think somebody had gotten it for him. We're like, oh, cool. People are talking about the show online. Let's see if we can see this. Let's see what they have to say. So this was before the internet was commonly available anywhere, and you had to get an account through a university, right? And I was like, okay, maybe UCLA will give me an account. Well, they wouldn't give me an account, but I found a service that would let you have dial-up connection, whatever. So we had them install a modem. They had to install a separate phone line because all the phones were Centrex phones. They installed a phone line in our office so we could dial up the internet. We're like, oh boy, Alt TV Simpsons, people are talking about the show. And so from season 4 and season 5, Josh and I looked at it, we interacted with the people, and then starting around mid-season 4, there was an increasingly large number of people who hated everything. And it became very frustrating. So I'd say by the end of season 6, we were just like, we told the Fox to take the modem out. And remove the phone
Take
line.
out the whole modem.
Yes.
Isn't that also the location of the only person who you could have maybe found who
that's
guessed?
where we saw that, and we never found that guy because his it was like a university account that had been deleted by the time fall came around.
Right, like he graduated or something. So it was just that was that. Because he could have been animated with The Simpsons, and instead nobody was animated with The Simpsons.
Yeah. People didn't like a lot of these episodes at the time, or they didn't. I mean, it's certainly on the staff. Nobody was a huge fan of 22 short films, and I never heard anything about it again until 2014 when it suddenly became this huge thing.
Yeah.
Many of us committed it to memory for no good reason when it came out.
Well, thanks so much, Bill. This was so exciting. I was looking forward to this for so long, and it was fantastic to get to talk to you.
It was really fun. You guys had you and your audience, and the three of you all had great questions, and it was a lot of fun to to answer them and to stroll down memory lane here with you.
Where's the best spot for people to see more of your stuff? Is that Instagram or
BillOakley.com? Okay, BillOakley.com has links to everything. It also will inform you of an event. You can get on the list to be informed of my events. If I'm coming to your area, I'll be going all over the country this year with my events. Ideally, the airport events, but also my other usual, the culinary curiosity dinners. The holiday version, I'm going to go. If I get the sponsor, I'm going to do them in Canada. The travel's very expensive, but if I get the sponsor, I'll be doing them in Canada too. So go to BillOakley.com. You can link to my other socials from there, but you can also get informed on all my stuff, my food stuff.
Awesome. All right, so that's it for this week. Thanks so much again to Bill Oakley for hanging out and letting us throw questions at one question after another with him. That was ridiculous.
I wore my glasses specifically so I could push them up with my middle finger, and
it took I don't even know if it was his era, but just asking about the wizard's key, that whole sequence where he's asking, ridiculous. Anyway, if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, give us a like, leave a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, also give us a like, maybe subscribe. Is there any other guests that you'd like us to try to get on the show? Somebody, another writer, voice actor, whoever. We're going to be trying to doing this a bit more this year, so let us know. I don't know. I'm just going to rewatch this.
Do you have connections
tonight.
And send them our way?
Right, please. Yes. Would you like to burn through a connection and share it with us instead?
Yeah.
We have some memes. And not just for characters.
Yeah. We'll take whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
You guys got anything you want to plug?
Check out this episode, everybody. It was a friggin' awesome one. I hope I didn't talk too much, but I thank you for indulging us, folks. This was a treat. I hope they enjoyed it as much as we did, but I don't think that's possible.
Every question I was like, yes, that's the question. That's a great question that you were asking. So I was like, yes, more of that, please.
More of
I want to know all of this.
No, I was just like, I had too many things. I was like, well, okay, so here's the part where I'm going to pull up the script for the episode, and we're just going to talk about it point by point.
So yeah, that's all we got.
That's it.
We'll catch up next week. AJ, you can tell us about your vacation.
Sure.
We need to hear about it. I saw photos. I know it looked like fun.
It looked like fun. It was fun.
There were images of the family looking tired as hell at one point, and I was like, uh-oh.
That seemed about right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get the good and the bad in there.
There was some nice Dorkly merch representation too. So you and Dan.
Yeah.
Yep. Me and Dan both wore our Dorkly merch. at various points. Yeah,
Perfect.
I'll share all about it later. But for now, we like you. We hope you like us.
But it was more just like, we just thought it would be fun. It just seemed like a real funny comedy pairing of a Mr. Wilson homage, Dennis the Menace homage with Bart and George Bush.
And W makes a cameo in that episode as a cardboard
we didn't
cutout.
even know he was real. We knew at the time when we wrote that, we said, we knew Jeb Bush was one of his sons, but we didn't know if he had any other sons, which is why we just made up a character called George Bush Jr.